Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warrior Season 2, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with Bill's sides of things. He's up there trying to collect from a particular family, and the wife kind of presents herself, because right, my husband's not here, and he doesn't have the money he owes you, so give us more time by me selling myself to you. And she said, that's how she paid off Damon in the past. Because she's like, you're here on the behalf of the Chinese, so it makes Bill feel worse. Because, he's felt somewhat of a way about it beforehand, but this was a different situation where someone the exact same point he had made before throwing in Damon's face is now being made towards him, and it's getting under his skin because he feels bad that this woman would even feel the need to throw herself. And he's like, I'm not that person, but it's like his predecessor was that person. He took advantage of the situation, and it's like, that's not who I am, and the fact is you see me that way. It's like, at the end of the day, Bill is someone who's just in that situation of he owed a debt and now he's having to pay for it. Once again, you could also say it's karma for him killing Damon. It's like he wouldn't be in this situation. Probably be in a worse situation if he didn't kill Damon. But to be fair, I'm talking about not just killing him. He should have never set up the whole Leary situation to begin with. Because if he hadn't set that up, Leary would have never been in a position to tell him, hey, kill Damon. This is kind of on you, and would have put him in an impossible situation. So, but now it's like he's seeing himself as a bad guy. He can justify being like, hey, I'm not hurting these people. I'm not killing them. I'm just getting their debts that they owe. But the fact is that in that moment made him feel like, man, it made him feel scummy. It made him feel like the bad guy. So he went to Zing and was like, yo, I'm done. I'm walking away. But Zing was like, yeah, that's not how that happens. That's not how I do business. Because he tried to take some of the pay that he was getting paid by Zing. It's like, here's a little extra. And he's like, because of how you handle things at the poker tables too. He's like, take some of that and put it towards Edgar's debt. He's like, no, that's not how I do business. Because once again, it's like, well, you have to pay your own debts, because if I let his debt slide, he'll think, it's a show of strength, because if people think, my debt can be clear, last thing you want is that word getting out there and people kind of take the fungi for granted. It's like, it's a power play, but also it's like he's power tripping, and it's just like, once again, it's not even about the money itself, because he even made it clear it's not always about the money. It's about the principle of the matter. Like I said, it's about control and everything, and having that fear in people to know, like, hey, you mess up, you owe money to us, we will come after you. We don't want you to have no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a clear fact. So Bill walking away, and then Chow and Zing had this conversation where he said right, you work for me until you only work for me. And when he was talking to Chow about that, because Chow works for everybody, he works for every angle, and it's like, hey, you owe me those weapons. It's like, well, I can't. The cops confiscated everything I got, so I can't help you. And it's like, well, the last time I worked with your predecessor, he kind of, screwed me over on the situation. It's like, yeah, but, is that why you set him up to die? To be fair, that was not Chow's plan. That was all my ling, and you're the one that you were more complicit with it than Chow was. Chow set up the meet, but he had no idea what was going down. You already knew what was what. You already knew you were going to kill your predecessor in that moment because she'd already approached you. So that's the thing of Zing's trying to put him as the bad guy, but it's like, no, you're the real bad guy in this. But either way, Chow doesn't like someone forcing his hand, and I brought it up last episode. Chow does now have, we are aware of, as the audience are aware of, and even Atoy is aware of, he does have a weakness. He does have a daughter that can be used against him. So I think that's why Chow's very wary of the fungi, because they are people who will, any of the Tong, Hop Wei, probably Long Z, but specifically the fungi will probably play extremely dirty. So it's they won't be above using leverage against you. We saw that already at the end of the episode. But so I'm sure Chow wants him out of his hair. He wants nothing to do with Zing. It's I operate with that way I do with other people, but there's this mutual respect I get from the Long Z and the Hop Wei and probably every other. People probably already know he works with the cops too, that he has a decent enough relationship, but at the very least, everyone knows Chow is going to look after him, and he has a very good relationship with everyone. So, but it's kind of like Zing was going to almost make him forced to choose a side, and it's like Chow's business has always succeeded because he chooses no side but his own and takes advantage of all situations and everyone. So he presents all of this to Mai Ling about what happened. You know, it's like, right. We'll talk about the Hopway and the fungi later, but he was talking about basically the beat down they got from Hong, and it's like, right, the Hopway are just itching and waiting for the treaty to get broken, and the fungi will be their excuse to do it. So he's asking her, like, hey, have my side on this. I want you to kind of like deal with Zing. He'll listen to you because you guys are partners or whatever, but like, I do good business with you, so why jeopardize that by like getting me involved with Zing because I want nothing to do with him. But Mai Ling's like, well, you took the business. It's like, no, I did business with you. I'm only associated with him because you're associated with him. And she's like, well, then you're associated with him. It's like, don't put me in this situation. I'm telling you clearly how I want things to operate. And even Leong is like, yo, Chow has always been good to the Long Z. We don't want to kind of jeopardize that relationship. Because he disapproves of this whole thing. Like, he was not a fan of, like, the moment she agreed with the whole Fungi thing last season, he was not a fan of it. And it's kind of like, right, well, he said something about Long Z, like Long Z, I think basically appreciated Chow or something. He was always trusty. Like, he trusted loyalty above anything else. And it's like, oh yeah, and look where that got him. It's like, yeah, it did ultimately get him killed because he didn't see that coming, getting betrayed by his own wife, which cuts a little deep once again, because it's not like Leon was all about kill. Like, it's like, right, we can take over when Long Z dies, not expecting Mai Ling to take the opportunity to herself to kill him. He was well accepting of it because he's like, all right, because I see you for who you are, and it's like, right, they aren't prepared for who you really are, and even Leong isn't, and so it all kind of rubs him the wrong way. And I love to when that him and Chow are talking and just kind of they're going on that whole thing about, he's like, oh, you know what makes this person's noodles good? It's like, oh, the brin and the broth. And I love Leong be like, Chow, it's soy sauce. He's like, Leong, you have no imagination. But it's like, how do we handle the fungi situation? Because Leong could kill Zing, but it's like, then like the fungi would still come after you, then Mai Ling would have to retaliate. You guys go at each other until you wear yourself down. Hopway can come in and wipe you out. Once again, he loves the equilibrium of it. He doesn't want, like, hey, one side, you know, because he's friendly enough. He has associates on all sides. Because it's like, right, you go to war with the Hopway, like, it's going to be more catastrophe. Because he wants things to stay as peaceful in Chinatown. Once again, he has a vested interest because everything being great equilibrium all around keeps business good. He had even brought it up to Assam at the beginning of the episode. He's like, I know about your side business, you and Young June. I know about your molasses, you know, your opium stuff. But the problem is that you go down that route, it's going to lead, because I don't know what it is between you and Mai Ling. I got to know because he deals in information, and like, I want to be able to understand, like, if I'm able to have all the information, I can prepare myself and adjust properly with the coming storm, because there will be a storm. There will be hell to pay, and your secret war with Mai Ling, for whatever reason it is, because he hasn't figured it out yet. I don't know if he's going to figure it out on his own, or will he, Assam eventually tell him, because obviously he's pretty tight with Leon, but like, Leon's not opening his mouth about that. Like, he's too loyal to Mai Ling about it, but he'd never drop that information to anyone. But Chow made the whole point of, in this coming war, like, Chinatown, everyone else will suffer, and that is going to be the casualty, the cost of, like, both of their stubbornness, these siblings going to war like that. Because Mai Ling's not really paying Assam that much of attention, but she does know she has to be watchful, because as I brought up in episode 1 of the season, that she said that Assam, she's like, he made the mistake of thinking he knew me, but maybe I made a mistake of thinking I know him as well. But either way, this leads to my point of, well, how are they going to handle the whole situation with Zing and the fungi? And Chow says, I know of a way where you don't have to go to war. Now, my immediate thought was, well, the easiest way would be able to get the police after him, specifically Bill, because we know he knows that Bill is connected to the Fungi and working, because he was about to throw it in Bill's face, but once again, when Bill and Lee, I think it was the first episode of the season, like, he knew he could have thrown that in Bill's face, but he chose not to. Once again, hold on to that leverage until it really is necessary. So whether he's going to use that to his advantage, especially because where Bill is at the end of the episode, he's going to jump at any opportunity. Like probably like if Chow presents him the opportunity, it's probably going to benefit him. And it might be kind of a win-win in some regards. Cause I didn't even think about it. I'm stupid. Well, Chow knows that the police are looking for a swordsman, and we know the fungi aren't afraid of like slicing up people. Granted, they're not going to use blades, but it could be a win-win. For one, it gets Bill from underneath the fungi, which Chow knows about, but he also knows who the swordsman is. It's Atoy, so he kind of has Atoy's back and gets to keep her secret while getting rid of the fungi by making it seem like Zing is the swordsman. So that could be the direction. That could be the added bonus of where they could go using the police, specifically using Bill. Speaking of Bill really quickly before we circle back to his circumstances at the end of the episode, just his finishing up everything else with him. Obviously Patterson was talking to Atoy about Lee and him, but she's not too worried because it's like, no, like she already dealt with Bill last season. It's like, all I have to do is pay him off and he'll leave us alone. So she's like, I know how to handle him. I don't know if she knows about the fungi connection. I don't know if she'd even utilize that. We don't know. Like Atoy's probably got like a neutral standing with the fungi. She probably like Chow had like a neutral standing that isn't going to say, excuse me, very neutral. I think her situation is just kind of like, I don't mess with them. They don't mess with me. We haven't really seen her or her brothel interact with the fungi, so we don't really know. But either way, Lee is continuing to strike people off their suspect list because he's chopping at a pig in the department, but it's one of the weapons used by the Hopway. So it's like, right. He's looking at, because it has to be a sword, as we know. It might have been, because it's a Tong weapon in general. It might have been more, because obviously, like, the Hopway use hatchets, and so does the Longzi as well. But it's like the Tongs in general, probably both sides use a very specific like machete type of sword. It's like it doesn't match the wounds, and like a swordsman would be able to do it in a very specific strike of like, especially because we're talking about a moving target versus a stationary one. So for him, it's like he's striking them off the list of like they don't seem like they're the suspects, because if it was the Hopway or like any Tong, they'd use a weapon they're familiar with. No one would go out of their way to use a weapon that you can't readily get, because Chow, like kind of like the mediary for like weaponry and stuff like that, he doesn't carry a sword like that. So no one does. Once again, that's why I'm thinking like that's why my thought process previously has got to be like, there's got to be like a family heirloom for Atoy or something like that. Or like I said, not listed, just maybe it's not a family heirloom. Maybe it's just a sword she got a hand on. She keeps for sentimental purposes outside of like a family thing. But it just feels more likely it's got to be a family thing of like, why would you have that in the first place? It can't have been easy to get that into the country, not unless you use other means to kind of sneak it in. But either way, inviting Lee over for dinner. And I think it's kind of sweet that, because he feels kind of bad because, like, hey, I'm here all the time. I don't want your wife cooking for me all the time. I feel like I'm imposing. But it's like, nah, you're part of the family. We love having you over. The kids love having you over, so it's fine. And then after when it seems like, oh, everything's calming down, I'm like, I don't know, it feels like something's going to go wrong. The moment Bill left the house, I was like, please don't go anywhere, because he's got Lee's note because he left it behind. I was like, please don't go give it to Lee, because the moment you do, I think I said Hopway a second ago, I meant the fungi. I was like, the fungi are going to show up and they're going to kill your family. Please don't leave. But he didn't. But I love that, hey, the camera's focused on him, and then it kind of zooms and pans, and we see like his son's being held by the blade, and in the background, you get you can see his wife being in the same situation. Luckily, I guess Lee realized at the last second he had left his notebook. I am curious all that. I guess like Lee goes because he can be very obsessive about this stuff. So he must have gone in great detail in his notebook for like Bill to be flipping through, and it's like, Jesus, dude. But yeah, luckily Lee came back and that situation popped off. Luckily, his son Ethan nor his wife didn't die. They could have easily died in that situation. But it's like, ooh, especially because his son kept pointing with the gun, and it's like, good thing he didn't fire because for one, being at that age, being responsible for killing someone, even if you're defending your dad, that's a lot to deal with. And you could tell Bill was probably making a point, so he tried to make it so that his son wouldn't have to pull the trigger. Because also his son's never done it before, so who knows, he might have accidentally hit Bill or something. So I was scared, just like, the person I was worried about the most was his wife. I was like, please let her be okay. But it seems like she's actually the one that saves Bill in the end, because she's the one that pulls the trigger with a different gun. I don't know if that was a gun they had, like, there. I don't know if that was Lee's gun or what, but she pulled the trigger and took Ethan upstairs after it was all said and done, and Bill and Lee look at each other and it's like, oh yeah, it's go time. Zing is going to pay for this, attacking me in my own home, threatening to kill my wife and my son, and going to be threatening the rest of my family. It's like, no, we're done. So, like I said, I think this sets up just what Chow was probably hoping for. This might even work better than Chow probably had planned. So he'll probably, like I said, use this opportunity to point them towards a fungi, but Lee is looking into this very deeply. Like I said, if they want to try and make them take the fall for it and be like, Zing is the swordsman, if that's the way Chow wants to handle that, Lee's going to be the one to figure out, no, it can't be. Like, the fungi don't use any weapons that resemble that either, so that could be the thing. Because they're obviously, the department's getting a lot of pressure, because it's like, hey, the swordsman, but it's like, well, if the fungi take the fall for it, specifically if Zing takes the fall for it, eventually Atoya is going to go on another killing spree for, whatever the reason may be, whatever the circumstances are that causes her to take action again, even though she said she was going to take a break for a while. If she resurfaces after Zing's already taken the fall, that's going to backfire on her. Not unless it ends up being a thing of Lai ends up, going a little rogue on her own and Atoy has to kind of cover. That's me kind of throwing that further ahead in the season. We've still got quite a bit before we even get to those later parts in the season, so who knows how this will all ultimately play out, but some other elements to the episode. The mayor and Buckley show up, not too happy about what Penelope has done. It's like, once again, it was bad enough you got Chinese labor. You've literally got criminals as your security guards, but it's like, I had no other choice. You weren't going to help me out. So City Hall wasn't going to help me out. But for him, it's like, right, if you don't get rid of all of this, I'm going to pull your contract. So this business is going to suffer. So it's like, right, you could have sold it at a point where you could have made some money for you and your family, but now that this has been taken away, it can blow up in your face. I didn't talk about it last episode, but her explanation to Assam was like, yeah, because, well, she said, like, the real reason is something I kind of lie to myself about. It's just, I don't want to have to use my husband's money. I don't know if she was suggesting, like, that's the lie I tell myself, but it's something deeper, or I tell myself a lie that it's something else. But truth be told is, I want to be able to have my own power, my own say, my own voice, Which that element does come up pretty prominently in this episode, because we run into Miss Davenport again, and we find out about her circumstances. Obviously, her husband died, and she's kind of living in her house alone, and she's kind of going on this, crusade on her own. And someone had brought up a point that I had brought up. She was like, oh, isn't there enough white people you could save? So it seemed like she was going to other brothels last episode, but maybe I was thinking Atoy maybe she's the more pristine one, but maybe Atoy isn't the only Chinese brothel. I mean, she's probably the only Chinese-owned brothel. There might be other brothels out there that are like owned by like white men or white women or whatever that have Chinese girls at it. But this is a personal fight for her, because like she is coming at it from like a Christian view. I think I was probably a little harsh on her last episode, but that's also because I'm in defense of Atoy. But I even said, like, it is a little of a complicated thing. I justify it only simply by the fact of what other way could Chinese women make it in this situation? Because like I said, at the very least, they are under Atoy's business. They'll be treated well. They will be compensated, where it's like any other circumstances, once again, you see how Chinese men are treated. I can only assume and guarantee Chinese women are going to be treated even worse, So it is that complicated thing of like, they're in a tough position, but at least Atoy, I trust her to do right by these people. Unless you fuck her over, then she's going to fuck you over. But, It just like you kind of like the prostitution angle to it, but it's like she's a good madam to people. We've only seen her be nice to her people, and it seems like her people respect her. But I mean, to be fair, we haven't spent too much side on that. Except for the one that once again who fucked over. Who worked for the Long Z and screwed over Atoy, and Atoy kind of made her pay. So other than that, like it seems like she has a good relationship with the girls. But Ms. Davenport, her like, it's like, oh, will your husband approve of this? It's like, oh, I'm sure he would, considering like he used to frequent these places. We find out her husband died from like having a heart attack while he was sodomizing a 14-year-old. Like, that's why I was like, at least Atoy, I mean, that we're aware of it. We don't know how old Lai is, but to be fair, Lai's not one of her girls. But Lai seems like she might be on the younger side, but she just might look younger. She might not be younger. But like what I was about to say is like, from what we've seen, all of Atoy's employees seem like women. Like, you know, they don't seem like they're teenagers, and definitely don't seem like they're minors. At least they all seem like full-grown women to me, but yeah, so that puts him in a different position of like, oh, you're nasty. Like, yeah, you want, you know, and I love how Miss Davenport turned it around, but like, oh, I'm sure I don't mean to attack all men. I'm sure I don't mean to attack you gentlemen. I know you guys would never participate in that. And Penelope's like, oh, sorry, I've just was having trouble swallowing that. And it's like everyone's looking around. I'm sure a lot of those, because she's like, oh, don't act like you're shocked, guys. I know each and every one of you knew about my husband's proclivities, but I'm sure like everyone, we definitely know the mayor's proclivities. But we don't, I mean, and even Penelope knows about that. She made that pretty clear. She already knows about that. But I'm sure every other, like, wife and husband there, like, the wives probably do know about it. So, like I said, that Miss Davenport situation is definitely going to continue to be a really interesting development. I'm curious to see where that kind of goes. And kind of, you know, staying adjacent to the mayor, we did get another scene with Buckley. And we saw, I don't know if that's the same woman he got last time, or maybe it's not the same woman he gets every time, but maybe he has a very specific type. Like, it seemed like, I think the last person he got was a redhead. This person is too, which I'm like, that feels very serial killer-ish, but it also could be like he has some like kink or scenario he's working out because he's bathing them. And I don't know if it's kind of like a thing of like, oh, you're like the woman that got away and I'm repeating that whole thing by cleaning you up and probably dressing you kind of like the woman that got away. Like there's some shit he's working through. I mean, honestly, if we're really going to get to the nitty gritty of it, it's probably like if we really want to dissect his psychopathy, more likely it's probably going to end up being a thing of probably some mommy issues. Like I said, whether or not they go to some serial killer level stuff of, oh, he cleans them up and then like maybe he strangles them, hurts them a little, or maybe even straight up kills them. We only just keep getting this little peek into that. But once again, we know Mai Ling last episode hired a Pinkerton to look into him, or an ex-Pinkerton to look into him. So that's going to be some of Mai Ling's dirt against him, I'm assuming. Speaking of Mai Ling, kind of transition, I completely forgot to talk about her conversation with the Feng Kai. I thought Mai Ling was making a point just to make a point, like a power point, but a point of like coming from a place of power and strength by like, hey, I'm not going to show any sign of weakness. But even she called out Zing for how he handled the situation last episode. But it's not till they played the preview again where Buckley made a whole point about I need blood, I need there to be war. I was like, is that why Mai Ling let Zing do that? Because once again, Li Yong doesn't know about the Buckley of it all. At least not that we're aware of. So I'm curious if Mai Ling is trying to play both sides. It's like, hey, Zing, I'm letting you do that so I can get shit started without letting Li Yong know, but I'm going to pretend like I'm like backing Li Yong because I want to push him into a corner where he feels like he has to do this because I can't directly do anything. But if like Li Yong does something thinking he's doing it outside of my purview, then it all works itself out. I don't know if that's really her end game or whether she legitimately was like, no, I sent you there without really thinking that you would cause that much mayhem. Like I said, that could just be her covering her bases in front of Leon because she knows how, like he probably talked to her about how that didn't sit well with her. Plus, word's already gotten out about that, so it kind of looks bad upon the Long Z, especially because it's kind of in that icky territory with the. I'm sure, like, because it's not the hop way, it's not that much of an issue, but it's still probably like raising some tensions amongst, like, you know, when it comes to the treaty and stuff. It's tiptoeing on some stuff that probably could blow that whole thing up. So I'm curious to know Mai Ling's actual motivations for that, you know. Circling to Assam and Young Jun, they've actually starting to do really good with their side hustle, because it turns out, hey, if we keep this up along with the money we're getting for protecting Penny's business, we may actually end up being able to turn a profit within 2 months. But the problem is Father June brings in some more people to join the Hopway, more hatchets, which Young Jun's like, why would you do this without even letting me know? You're not showing me respect. The fact is, I'm supposed to be the person you trust most out of anyone, yet I'm the last one to find out this is what you're doing. Like, you're telling me, oh, not to talk to the council a certain way, but you're the reason why I look like an idiot. The fact is, I'm telling them to get out of the room. What do? They sit there because they don't leave until Father June gives them the okay to leave. Because that showcase is like, right, whatever position you have, Young June, it's always going to probably be viewed as a nepotism thing. No matter what you went through, no matter what, you'll always be seen as, well, your father's the one that's going to control, so we'll listen to him. You know, anytime we follow any of your orders, it's because your father's speaking through you. So I think that's kind of just supposed to showcase, like, right, I don't really have the power and say I thought I did. But it's like, right, you told me you trust me. And he's like, the moment he was like, yes, and that trust goes both ways, maybe go, does he know about what they're up to? Because that's what Young Ju started wondering. It's like, right, he brought over these people from China because that means he must be talking to the 6 companies. If he hasn't talked to them already in this capacity, he'll eventually find out that we're not getting what we need. We're not getting the molasses or whatever from China. So, but it's like, right, he'll find out eventually, but by then we'll show him the profits. And show him that, yes, you're smart, you've got this plan figured out, which I think is an interesting line in conjunction and paralleled with what did Father June say. It's like, right, you're not smart enough to realize what you don't know. You think you're young, you think you've got it all figured out, you think you know the ins and outs. I've been at this game for a while. I've got wisdom and age on my side to let me know, like, I can see the bigger board. When you're so focused on the smaller picture, I see the bigger picture. I see the long game, which Mai Ling is playing, but even Mai Ling is young and reckless and impatient enough to think she's playing the long game when she's playing a shorter game than I am, as I'm playing the real long game. So, but yeah, we meet Hong, which I'm interested to find out, is he going to be kind of like, oh, I'm the goofy guy, but seriously, I'm actually secretly a plant from, because he made a point. Especially because he was like, oh, Assam, I heard about you. I mean, it's like, I guess all of that would have gotten back to China, but the fact is he knows Assam. I was like, were you specifically brought in by Father June to keep it? Because he had Assam look into keeping an eye on Young June, but maybe it's like the moment he heard whispers, because obviously Chow found out about what they're doing. Of course, Father June's eventually going to as well, if he doesn't already know. Like I said, Young June's kind of worried that he does, but Hong could be his inside guy of like, yeah, I need you to keep an eye on this. I need you to tell me what they're up to, like confirm any suspicions I have, or at the very least, like, all right, I know I have my pretty good suspicions, but I keep an eye on them and let them kind of dig the grave more, or just sit on the sideline and step in only when necessary. Because he kind of went out of his way to try to get super friendly with them. So I love the whole, like, hey, can I get a lighter? Actually, I need something to light. Oh, man, it's like, oh, don't you have friends to go back to? But Hong's like, yeah, they don't really like me much. And Asam's like, yeah, no, you say that, no surprise. But he's like, yeah, I'm kind of a scrapper. But if I don't, I was on the salt for like a month, out in sea for like a month getting here in America. So it's like, hey, if I don't get my dick sucked right now, you might as well like kill me right now. So it seems like he might be gay. I mean, maybe gay or gay, but You know, but I love that he's like, oh, you're not going to tell anyone, are you? Which Asam's like, dude, you're Chinese in America. You're going to have bigger things to worry about. That it's like, maybe not. Considering it's like, that's going to be a massive thing. It's like, oh, you're Chinese and we caught you with a man, which obviously is kind of interesting because obviously, well, one person we know that floats that way is the mayor. We know he's potentially bi. I mean, we don't know his circumstances of whether he, you know, enjoys watching or loves partaking in kind of a threesome with a man and a woman, you know, whatever his proclivities, you know, whatever his thing is, you know. I specifically put it in the proclivities of not because he wants to have a threesome, but because he's, you know, hiring, you know, prostitutes from a brothel. So that's why I put it more so on the proclivity side of things. So, but Hong isn't just like all talk or whatever. Like he can't handle himself in a fight. Like once again, his style kind of made me think of like a drunken master type of style because he looked like he was kind of swaying a little bit, and I don't know if that was on purpose or not. I don't, but he can handle himself pretty well. And it's just like, wow, that guy is a bit off. He is a bit crazy, which Young Jun's like, we can work with crazy. And just like, I was like, he seems like he's going to be the fun time. But like I said, it might be a ploy where it's just like, you know, your kind of typical protagonist of like, oh man, he seems silly and goofy. But when the time comes, he can get serious. Like it feels like Hong could be that. We'll see. Find out what his true circumstances may be, if there is something deeper to it, or whether he just is a new character we're getting introduced to. It just feels, he might not be someone like necessarily significance from China, not unless he's someone from one of the 6 companies, and that could be what that is, or maybe it is just simply a thing of, no, he was requested by like Father June specifically, like I said, a spy on Young Jun and Assam. Another development we have is the whole situation with Penny's sister. I called her Sophie last episode. I'm fairly certain it is Sophie. Her and Leary. So she knows Leary is the one blowing up businesses because of their connections to Chinese labor. So I'm like, okay. Once again, so it is an even more dangerous game because you know who he is, you know what he's all about. She's like, right, you probably be worried about the wrong person seeing this because it's a map of San Francisco and all these buildings he plans to blow up if he doesn't get his way. And they kind of do their thing, but he's kind of like, no, this is probably, this can't end well, but doesn't stop them regardless. So I think it's something they are looking for in each other. Like he hasn't probably been with anyone since he lost his wife and children 8 years ago. And for her, it's just, I think she's probably felt lonely. And once again, so much has probably been decided about her life. And this is something she wants to decide on her own. Like I said, it's interesting and complicated considering this literally goes full contrast with what your sister's up to. I don't think she gets into she knows the details of it. But I don't know where she stands on it. Because obviously Penelope's made it pretty clear where she stands on the subject, but where does her sister stand on it? Because she's getting close to Leary and she feels sorry for him and the men that he works with, but she also knows where her sister stands. So maybe she leans more towards Leary's perspective, or maybe she's just somewhere in the middle and like this is just kind of like I like you and I understand your plight, but I also understand where my sister's coming from. I just don't feel like she's probably as like attuned to like the Chinese circumstance as much as she is with like Leary and the Irish circumstance. So because she was asking like, do you regret ever coming here? Which is like, yeah, it's better than this situation. Place has its complications, but it's still better than being back home. Because, you know, he opened up, and obviously his wife and his children aren't the first people he's ever lost. He lost his brothers because he's like, right, they would be up crying because they hadn't had a solid meal in a week. And he's like waking up to find that your brothers have stopped crying because they passed, and you're conflicted because there's a part of you that's heartbroken that your siblings are gone, but also relieved that they're gone, either because I don't remember if he got into the nitty gritty of why that relief would be. It's probably, that's complicated too, because the relief of like, right, they're not suffering anymore, or two, the relief of I don't have to take care of them anymore, so I'm kind of free of that angle in life. So, and that probably conflicts you so much more. And he was going to kind of push, because she was kind of talking about like, she knows that, you know, she so many people want to come to this country no matter what their circumstances are, trying to find a better life when all she ever wanted to do was run away from it. And so she's like, and that's what made him go like, wait, you know what it's like to kind of like lose your entire crop because of like a famine. You know what it's like to wake up and, he talked about his sibling circumstances and he's going to walk away, but she grabs his hand and kind of makes him kind of walk with her. It's kind of like, sorry, I can't speak I have no right to talk like I know what your circumstances are, what you've been through. That's not fair for you. And that's not fair, especially coming from my privilege and my circumstances. So we'll see how that plays out. Like I said, that's asking for trouble. You think Assam is asking for trouble? Well, he definitely is, but with his circumstances. But even more so in the case of Sophie. So we'll see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.